Aye. Okay, I'd like to call the Hopkinton Town Council meeting of June 1st, 2015 to order with a moment of silent meditation and salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First on our agenda is a motion to sit as a licensing board. All those in favor? Aye. I want to open a hearing on an application for a special event permit filed by Nathaniel Mikowski for Ashaway Cub Scout Pack 1, P.O. Box 965, Ashaway, Rhode Island, for a family campout at Crandall Field scheduled for 12 p.m. on June 13th, 2015. Through 10 a.m. on June 14th, 2015. Mr. Mikowski, I see him present. Okay. Everything in order, Lisa? Application, I know that waivers weren't.
Right, so you saw my letter?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Mikowski, you want to come on up? Same as last year, right?
Same as last year.
And you would like to ask for a waiver for your licensing fee?
Yes, we would. We would like to ask for the waiver.
We're really happy you had such a good time at Crandall.
We do. We have a great time. This will be the 4th year in a row we've done it, and the kids have a fabulous time. It's a great event.
Okay, Council, any questions for Mr. Mikowski? All right, we have a motion.
Motion to accept the application for a special event permit filed by...
I want to see if anyone out in the public is in this hearing. Anyone out there wishing to be heard on this matter?
Okay, a motion to accept the application for a special event permit filed for the Ashaway Cub Scout Pack for a camp out at Crandall Field from 12 p.m. June 13th through 10 a.m. June 14th with the waiver of the licensing.
Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Any further discussion, folks?
Advertisements. The last time we had to do this, we used our council contingency to pay for it. So we need to amend the motion to give them back the $100 fee for the cost of the advertising and use council contingency to pay for it. That's what we did the last time.
So moved. So amended. So a second to amend.
Second.
Okay, motion is amended and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thanks, Mr. Mikowski.
The motion as amended. All those in favor?
Aye.
So they don't have to pay again. So we revise it.
We need a motion to adjourn this licensing board.
So moved.
Second.
Consent agenda. Next on our agenda, Town Council meeting minutes of May 18th, 2015. Special Town Council meeting minutes of May 11th, 2015. I would too.
I'd like to make a motion to accept special town council meeting minutes of May 11th.
Second.
Second.
All right. Yeah.
And vote. All those in favor?
All those in favor?
Aye.
May 18th, page.
Go ahead, Bob. Which one do you?
Page 8. That's the rise wording is R-Y-S-E, not R-I-S-E. And page 11. Under Council Cataldo, Council should have attended, many of the items discussed tonight and discussed or concluded. I had also said that they should read the minutes, watch the video, or pick up the phone. Read the minutes, watch the video, or pick up the phone. That's it.
Mine is page 6, the end of the first paragraph, where it mentions about the medical marijuana. I think it was Tom's idea. The very last sentence was sale on Craigslist. I never even knew you can sell marijuana on
Craigslist.
I saw it on that.
I think it was Tom's, like, mentioning that.
Oh,
no. It was his thought, not mine.
His observation.
I had no idea. Observation.
My kid's out watching it.
Okay, thanks. Well, that's it for me.
Motion to approve town council meeting minutes of May 18th as amended.
Second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, first public forum. I know there's folks out there that may wish to speak on some of the agenda items. We have 2 public forums. You may want to do that now before any decisions are met or actually dealt with in the agenda. Because the second public forum is at the end of our agenda, which doesn't give you any input. So,
Can I ask a question?
sure.
I'm a little confused by what you said. Usually public forum at the beginning is for anything, as it states on the guidelines for the public to speak at town council meetings. Public forum, the first one is somebody here may need to leave, and they want to tell us something, and it's not on the agenda. They can bring it up.
Correct.
And the last public forum, somebody comes late, or they want to stay through the whole meeting and they still want to bring something up that's not on the agenda, that's fine. But if it's on the agenda, that's when they speak.
Well, I disagree.
Okay,
Okay.
then we need to revise the guidelines.
Yeah, you might want to, because basically, it's not a hearing. The only hearing we have is just about Cub Scout Pack 1. Any hearings, public input is sought. I know in the past we've been that way. I just don't feel comfortable with that.
So are you saying you don't want people to speak on agenda items? You want them to bring up anything they want at public forum?
Right.
My question to that, question out practice. Can we then reply under public forum to their questions or whatever?
Only if it's not.
Because
forum.
it is on the agenda, but we're not doing, it's something, if
Three
it's public,
people.
that's only if it's not on the agenda.
No,
If it's on the agenda, I do believe that we can reply to that, correct?
Well, let's hear from Pat.
okay.
The last point you've got on the agenda is stated to be a public hearing. There is no right of the public to speak when that agenda item comes up. It's strictly for the council's discussion. That's one of the reasons you have public forums. And I've got 2 past presidents sitting here, both of whom I've made this argument to on a number of occasions, because the process of allowing people to raise their hands in the audience and say, I want to speak on that, I want to speak on that, is not necessarily the best way to proceed. And I've talked, both of you told me to go up on stage, okay? But it's a much better practice. It's a much better practice to make sure that unless it's a public hearing, you don't have public comment, except where you call for public comment, which is the public forums. And that's people's opportunity to either bring up something that's not on the agenda, or to speak to the point of agenda items. I mean, it's both. It's not just one or the other.
Right.
Can you get into a lengthy discussion with someone who comes up to offer you information at public forum? No, you cannot.
That was my question.
However, the second question to that, if the item is on the agenda that they're discussing in the first public forum, that we have a discussion on the agenda,
When you get to
can there be a dialogue between that person and someone on the council?
No, not during public forum, no.
Well, it's too bad because,
This is an open meetings issue, by the way. It's not
right,
my issue.
right, yeah, and it's, well, when it comes to agenda items, it's a council president decision whether or not he's going to allow people to speak in the
Well, we don't
audience.
have an agenda item tonight about that.
No.
So the council president's decision about how the meeting is run
Right,
is done unless at some point in the future you guys want to put on an agenda discussion about how you're going to run the meetings, and then we can have a nice long discussion about it.
no, okay, that's fine. When someone brings something up at public forum, what I was going to say is it's too bad because, for instance, a lot of people here want to talk about the 1904 building. It's on the agenda. When we get to that agenda item, I'm 100% sure that we're going to have answers. But but they're gonna be worried and upset and bring up anything they want, but we've got answers for them, but we can't give them the
Well, then they can
answers.
sit here
It's
until
too
the
bad.
agenda item comes
Oh,
up. and-
It's too
we'll give
bad.
them- We'll give them the answers down on the agenda.
It's too bad, because when you get to the agenda item, if you made them wait until then, and the council had a discussion, and they'd be like, oh, good, they're on board with us. They wouldn't have to talk for an hour, because they found out we're all on board with
I
it.
think the way we're
So
gonna
that's-
proceed,
So
the way we're gonna proceed is, yeah, one second, Bob. The way we're gonna proceed is, it's not a public hearing. I know that there are folks out there that need to be heard, and they're gonna be heard at the public forum. If you guys wanna jot down any concerns, questions that you think you wanna answer when we get to the agenda item, that's what we'll do. We'll make sure that we address all their concerns when we talk about it as a council. Yes, Bob?
My concern is the agenda item specifically says the discussion and vote is on the exclusive right to sell or lease. It does not say on the agenda that we are discussing the issues with the Ashway Elementary School. So it says only that we're discussing and voting upon the exclusive right to sell or lease. So anything they have to say about the building that doesn't involve the exclusive right to sell or lease, they maybe should say in public forum before they get to this agenda item, which is quite specific.
Well, that's a very broad statement. But I have questions about the listing agreement, so I'm perfectly fine with delving into it, so I'm not concerned about it, so let's proceed. Lisa, you want to, I'm sorry, just Lisa. If you want to be number one, I know you're here for the, I talked to you Friday, we had a brief conversation, so.
And we all appreciate you having taken the time to have that conversation about how to best hear us and be able to respond. Absolutely, Mrs. Thompson, we do expect and want responses from the board, so I appreciate that. So thank you all for considering our input and the input of all the parents and the community members present here tonight. I'm here to speak to you as a private citizen, but also as an elected school committee member that has been vested with the care and education of our children. And I also hold a seat on the Ashaway School Safety Team. I understand that you've had several meetings already on this matter, and I regret not coming before you sooner. However, based on my previous conversations with Councilman Husband, Vice President Capalbo, and Mr. Landolfi's previous votes, I actually didn't think I would need to be here, that it would have come this far. I've researched the matter regarding, by reading your prior minutes. I've reviewed the lease agreement between the school committee and the town, the revised one that released us from the 1904 building, so I understand the context there. And I've also spoke to Mr. George Abbott and Ms. Stanley. I was unable to reach school committee member Ure today, but I did that to make sure I understood that there was some context and history to the building as well. So when I say this to you today, I want you to know that I've done my research and I've really looked through all of the lenses that I believe the town has. So irregardless, tonight I'm asking you to vote no on the decision to allow Cahoon Realtor Group to list the property for lease for sale, despite the opt-out provisions that Mr. Landolfi has assured me exist. Because there really is no suitable buyer that could be compatible to both the town and the school. And that was what was listed in your minutes that Ms. Blivet had stated, that she would market a widespread marketing campaign to find a compatible buyer or leasee. And during your discussion, as Sylvia has mentioned, if you could please, if you have examples for us of a compatible leasee or buyer that would both give you profit and us safety for our children, we would like to know, because we have brainstormed and cannot think of a use for that building that would give you what you need and provide for the safety of our kids. I want you to consider that, again, the realtor states that she'll be doing widespread marketing. That's in the April 6th minutes. And here are the two concerns. And I believe you also have a letter from the Ashaway Safety Team you all received, correct? Stating just about, not verbatim, but what I'm about to say to you now too. And that is, it's going to cause, the marketing of this building is going to cause unnecessary attention to the school campus. It's going to encourage drive-by traffic and compromise the safety of the children on the schoolyard. It'll be impossible for Chief Palmer and his team to distinguish between what foot and auto traffic is aimed at sizing up the building and what traffic is aimed at sizing up the children in the schoolyard. Unless you're going to be paying for 24-hour surveillance, or at least from 9 a.m. till 3 p.m., I don't see how that is going to be feasible in terms of keeping our children safe during the school day. I've also been told by Mr. Landolfi that the town would, of course, never allow the building to be sold to anyone posing a risk to the students, and that he would wanted our trust. But so if that's the case, and we can't really think of a compatible buyer or leasee, why put all the parents to the angst of seeing a for sale sign, knowing that our address is now widely published, for probably no reason at all. It just seems like a lot of undue angst to the parents and the families and the homeowners on that street as well. So lastly, there may be many viable options for the 1904 building, or there may not be. But please listen to the community here tonight that has left their children at home, they've left their families, they're here purposefully to speak to you on this matter. Please vote no to the contract and reopen discussion at another time about how to move forward on the building, now knowing that we're all here and willing to participate in that discussion, now that we know that it's come this far. Okay, thank you very much.
Anyone else wishing to be heard on this matter?
No.
Okay, sure. Please introduce yourself.
Certainly. My name is Peter Rogers. I lived in this town my whole life. I went to school in the 1904 building. I attended kindergarten there through 4th grade. I then went to what they call the new building, which is where our school is attended now. And let me just say that exactly as Ms. Macaluso has said here, I think that the angst against selling this building or leasing it to someone else is sort of, it weighs heavy on all of our hearts. It's one of those things that you don't know who's going to move into this building, and regardless of who moves into this building when you sell it or lease it, we don't know who their friends will be, we don't know who their acquaintances will be. We cannot, and you cannot, manage to screen everyone who will be in and out of this property. This property is directly related to the school property. Now, I don't understand personally, sir, and unfortunately, I am not necessarily prepared to talk tonight, but I'm going to give you, off the top of my head, the fact that I cannot see, as she said, a viable purpose for this building other than something related to this school. I cannot understand, sir, how it can be that this building can be renovated to something that can be other than school related. I don't understand where the deviation is from school property to town property, and I don't see how it can be that that delineation can be made for the playground area, for the parking that may occur for whatever this building is used for, that we can assure the safety of our children. My child, in particular, will be out of this school next year. He only has the next year to be gone. But I'm looking forward to everyone else in this town for the safety of our children. And again, maybe everything will be just great. Maybe it will be just tickety-boo. Who can say? But if a friend of a friend shows up at this place that has been leased or sold who is not safe for our children, how is anyone here going to be able to figure that out before it happens? That danger exists to me in my mind, and maybe I'm paranoid, but it exists every second of every day. I worry about my son, I worry about her children, I worry about everyone's children in this town, because, and again, perhaps maybe I'm biased, I went to school there. I remember art class in the basement, I remember music class in the basement, and I remember going through all of those different stages of my school history. My son right now, to this day, has to move from the building that he's in outside into a double-wide trailer to go and enjoy his art class and his music class, his two favorite classes. He's going to a double-wide trailer outside of the school building that he sees all of his friends in every single day. Are you seriously telling me that that's safe? How about if this building can seriously be renovated to a point where it's safe for human habitation and it's safe for someone to actually live there and do their business and everything else, why can it not be renovated to a point where the school can use it? Do we seriously not have that money? And again, all due respect, sir, we have renovated the Hopkinton Police Station to a state-of-the-art facility. We can't do the same for our children?
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay.
Good to follow.
Please introduce yourself.
I'm Kendrick Swain, this is my wife Jessica. We are residents of 17 Hillside Avenue, so we are directly across the street from the school, and our children are in 3rd and kindergarten there. So we have an interest both as neighbors to the property and as parents of students. The concerns that we have are echoing the safety, but also questioning what use that building could present to anyone at this point. If it's a commercial use, from the information that I have been able to look up, and I'm sorry that I don't have as much time to prepare as some, but from the information that I've been able to find on the tax maps and the use maps that are provided online by the Hopkinton government website, that property is zoned low-density residential, not commercial. That location is indicated as a historic site, whether that is an official status or just an indication that that building has been around for a while, I don't know. But those are two very identifying features of that building that may prohibit any use beyond possible residential. The location does not speak to use as residential at all because of the lack of land, the parking situation, any updates that need to be done to the septic or the electrical, the lead abatement, the asbestos abatement, the traffic increase. So there are a lot of items that we see that would be a detriment to the immediate neighborhood and the community, that the sale for possible use doesn't seem to be a value. Whatever you could get for the building, in terms of the sale or the lease, there is doesn't seem to be a benefit for the town. If it were to be rezoned commercial, there's the entire Exit 1 business area that has been identified on the map that could be explored for commercial development. My wife has some topics.
We need a list, I'm sorry. All right, so some of the other concerns we have, again, we live across the street from the school. Our children play in that playground. Who will be watching them? The sale of this building will impede future expansion of the school. What will happen to the school, as was stated? My daughter has to walk outside in the snow, in the rain. She could slip, she could fall, she could get hurt. She hasn't, thankfully. But she has to go outside in those events. After school. This is during school, after school. We live across the street. We play in that playground. There are constantly kids there until 10, 11, sometimes midnight, playing. They're happy. They're having a good time. But if that's an office building, if that is another residence, what happens then? Can they still play? Is that still free? Is that still open? The parking lot itself is not in good condition. I have bottomed out my car. I drive a Honda Pilot. It's not good condition. Will that be fixed? The school has many events, beautiful events, wonderful events. I can't leave my driveway. What happens then? If there's an accident, if there's an emergency, if there's an ambulance that needs to go down our road, they can't. Our street is packed. If there is, if there's an emergency at the school, will they be able to get to the school because a driveway will be blocked? Will there be another entrance that will be formed because this building will be commercial, or it will be residential? It'll be residential. So what will happen? What will change? will the school have to reconvene in a different way? How will my kids get to school? I have to drive behind the school and I come out the same entrance that the bus goes through.
Mrs. Capalvo, I also have a letter here from January 5th from our neighbor Andrew Bonner.
Oh, yes.
And unfortunately, he's unable to attend. He's doing missionary work in Haiti.
Oh,
So I'm not going to read the letter verbatim. It's a couple of paragraphs, but he is also questioning the use of the building. He is questioning the council's decision to sell or lease it, and he is putting support into discussing a more appropriate use or action to be taken on the building that would not affect property values, that would not affect safety, would not affect traffic. I do have a copy that I can give to the council to pass around if that would be okay.
Read it and then turn it into Lisa so we can get copies of it.
Sure.
It's the same one they had before.
Right.
It's the same one you already issued, we have.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's the same one or a different one. I have no idea what it is.
This was from January 5th of this year.
Yeah.
Oh, January 5th, we do that.
Okay, so if you have that, then you know which I speak.
Right.
So I guess to close, we would also ask that the town council vote no to accept the contract to sell this building, and we will be available if future discussions arise towards the use of the building, should it not be sold. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, Janice Palmer from Rhode in Ashway. Pretty much ditto what everybody else said. I'm concerned about the safety and what possible use there could be that would be okay for us. I guess I also question, I remember reading a Westerly Sun article that said that we had hired a professional to evaluate this situation, and his recommendation was that we demolish the building. That was the cheapest, most cost-effective option, most viable option. So I wonder why we're doing that, and we paid for that. And how much did it cost us for that price as well? I mean, we invested time and money in that, and obviously, to get to that point where we would hire someone to do that, we'd obviously discussed it a long time before that.
We've got those answers for you.
Thank you. So I respect your request and vote of no. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Dora Kellner, and I live at 9 Hillside Avenue, directly across the street from Ashway Elementary, next door to the Bonner family. And just this weekend was the first time that my husband and I were informed of the possibility of placing the old schoolhouse building on the market. My own opinion on that, unfortunately, is not favorable in that I truly believe that all of you, the council members, should have officially notified all the residents of Ashway regarding the possible sale of this building, especially the residents within the immediate proximity of the building. We have lived in Ashway since 2001, and our son attended the school for 2 years. During his second year is when the old building was no longer usable. At that time, I was very active, fortunately, in the PTO, and I was also a member of the school improvement team. And having close contact with the principal at that time, I was informed that prior to the closing of the building, that there were concerns regarding mold in the basement of the old building. And she stated at that time that it had been inspected and that the mold in that building was a common mold that could be found in any house in anywhere USA. And that was the end of the discussion. Well, when the building was closed, those of us on the site committee explored many different resources as far as trying to seek funds to bring the building up to code, because it was not up to code at that point regarding evacuation routes, elevators for those who are handicapped and whatnot. Well, moving now to the present, I again am quite shocked that we have reached this point as far as possibly placing that building on the market, because it opens us up to many unknowns. Number one, once the building is sold, hypothetically, is that a given that someone is actually going to occupy the building? When we lived down in North Carolina for many years, we quickly found out that there were many businesses or many business owners that were purchasing properties merely for tax write-offs, and the buildings were never occupied. And that's common practice down south. So naturally, we have a fear that this could possibly happen here in Ashway. The other concern is that if you walk down just a few feet from Ashway Elementary on River Road, Potter Hill Road, we will see that old mill that is in a horrible state of condition. And the town of Westerly is still trying to debate as to what's going to take place with that building. I would hate to see that eventually the schoolhouse on the Ashway property would reach to that state if a decision is not made in a timely manner. Bottom line is that back in 2002, that building was closed. It was no longer usable. We need to fully explore what possibly that building could be used for. However, placing it on the market leaves us open to unknowns in that there is no guarantee as far as will that new occupant be compatible with Ashway Elementary. Especially now in this day and time that we have to practice lockdown procedures, shooters in schools. This is going to open many, many safety concerns that nobody wants to deal with. And we shouldn't have to be discussing these items at this point. But I truly believe that if we're going to move forward as far as trying to come up with a viable use for that building, a committee should be formed to explore any and all possibilities of an item that would be compatible with Ashway Elementary. And with the elementary school right now, we're at a point as far as population in the area. Yes, it has been decreasing, so there has not been a need to increase classroom space within the elementary schools of this area. However, that's not always going to be the case. And in the event that Ashway Elementary will need to expand, where are we going to expand to? The field that's up on the hill, where the students are able to run around at this point and enjoy the fresh air. So we need to fully explore all of these avenues before we make a decision. And so I fully support that you vote no on this issue. Thank you.
Chief Palmer, Hopkinton Police Department. I am on the Ashway Elementary Safety Board. During that committee that we had approximately 3 weeks ago, I'm on with Lisa. I told her that I would express to the town council my concerns as a law enforcement agent of how that is sold and who is sold to. I'm not here to tell you yes or no. I think I'm telling you basically what you already know. From a law enforcement standpoint, the proximity of the building to Ashway Elementary for law enforcement to protect the children who it's sold to is extremely, extremely limited. Really, that's basically in a nutshell. We can't protect them if it's sold to the wrong person. And I think we need to do our due diligence on who we actually sell it to. I'm not here to tell you yes or no. I think that's something that you've already looked at when you were doing the opt-out plan, and law enforcement is concerned on the proximity. Thank you.
Anyone else out there?
My name is Kristen Els, and I have had 3 students and still 1 more and several more years to go here at Ashway Elementary School. And I concur wholeheartedly with the concerns and their request that we do not proceed with a sale of this nature. It is just inconceivable to think that there would be any kind of control about who comes and goes. That building, it's not next door. It is right there. It is the length of this room to our children. That is how close it is. They walk right by it when they're getting off of those buses. They are actively engaged in things that happen all around there all the time. And right now, I volunteer there every Tuesday morning, and I arrived 10 minutes early, was in my car, and John Zilski, the maintenance janitor, came out so that he could see who was out there. And that's the level of safety that we expect and that we love about Ashaway School and the small town of it. Because he saw who it was and he was able to go on. That's eliminated. That ability to know who's coming and going, it's gone. And I was on the outside parking lot. I wasn't even right next to the school. So I just don't see how our kids can be protected if there's an element that is just so unknown. And so I would ask you to vote no on that as well, and to follow the recommendations that were made by the advisor in the architectural firm that you hired. That's all. Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Kim Kelly. I live on Burnsville Road. I have a 3rd grader at Ashway Elementary. And I just wanted to reiterate, I did pretty much everyone's statements, but today we had a drill in Charo. We had an active shooter drill. And my concern is if that building was sold to someone and it was a residence or a business and there were cars perhaps parked in a way that emergency vehicles couldn't get in, not to mention who's living there, but just vehicles that would be blocking the entrance, or you lose control. You no longer know it's faculty, staff, and the parents. You no longer have control of who is even just parking in a way that might prohibit personnel to help. That's all I need.
Anyone else out there wishing to be heard?
So there are two last things in closing, since it looks like the public's done speaking on the issue. One was that my good friend Kim Kelly had mentioned to me earlier, but I think she was unable to kind of think it all the way through, and we saw the state that she's in. We really don't need this, by the way, for 3 months while you're running through this contract. And a point that she had made to me earlier was that even if, we know that you have the opt-out provisions, and we know that ultimately marketing the building, you can still say no to any buyer that you don't think fits us. We understand that. 2 points. One that Kim Kelly had made to me was what protections go beyond that? So if you sell it to, let's say, like our other neighbor here talked about, a business that tells you they have absolute best intentions, they'll follow all of our rules, can you control who they sell the business to and who they sell it to after that? That may or may not be in there, but again, it's angst we don't need. And lastly, on the marketing piece, I understand, I know you're all going to tell us that there are opt-out provisions in the contract with Sandy Bliven. Still vote no, because as the live shooter drill happened today, and that was something that had to be practiced Charahoe-wide, think now about what marketing does to the address of our children. The address of our school, the location of our school, exactly to the GPS pinpoint will now be on how many websites, how widespread on the internet, how many books, how many people will now know the address of our building. And it's kind of ironic if you vote yes tonight to marketing our school property, or the address of our school property, 12A versus 12B, the same day that we practiced a live active shooter drill. Okay, please consider that, please vote.
Thanks, Susan. Yes.
One more, sorry. Yeah, this photo's really good. Sarah Clark in Hopkinton. I am no longer a parent of Ashaway, but I was PTO president for 2 years and on the school improvement team for 2 years. My son is now over at middle school. I want to say to vote no. I kind of thought you know why I was here, but I realized I really need to say it too. And the thought of bringing on any strangers onto the campus. It's not across the street. It's not next door. It's on the campus of the elementary school. It's just unthinkable. So.
Okay. Any more folks wishing to be heard on this item?
Good evening, I'm Bill Holliday from Caldwell Banker. Sandy Bliven and I are together with this property. The only thing we have to say is the town council, I think, wants us to market the property, to give them options for the town council and the townspeople to decide if it's anything that can be conducive, that would work synonymous with the school and be a safe thing and a great thing for the town. So that you're just looking for options. I don't think there's any decisions being made with the opt-out system we have. We did that for the fact that we want to make sure you're happy and the town's happy. And we just hope we can be of help in that. And that's the only thing we're here for.
Excuse me, Sandy Bliven, Caldwell Banker. I just want to say I listened to everything you all said, and my heart goes out to you because I have passion also about the school. Someone mentioned demolish it. I couldn't imagine that happening. But I think if you trust in us and what we want to do, that we will do a good job for the town. I mean, I almost feel like saying, you know, hire another realtor, but this is my profession. But I will make you proud. I really will. Thank you.
Okay. All right. First public forum over. I think that's the longest one. Under old business, folks, discuss and vote upon the exclusive right to sell or lease the former Ashaway Elementary 1904 school to Home Bank of Cahoon Realty Group, consistent with the provisions enumerated in the listing today. You know, I know this item obviously is of concern of the Ashaway residents. You know, it's not the first time it's been on the agenda, folks, and we've batted around a lot of different options. We paid for, well, I'll let the manager get into all the details, but we paid for at least 3 studies on uses and what they would cost. I'm not overly confident. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but I don't think it's going to be sold or leased because of the cost involved in bringing that building up to speed. It's millions of dollars. I think the lowest quote we got is $2.5 million, something like that. So, you know, from my perspective, I know that the safety seems to be a real issue. We're parents, all of us up here. My son's a child at the middle school. I'm not going to say yes to a lessee or someone that wants to buy it at all if they seem wishy-washy or the business is not going to be conducive to that particular property. We ultimately have the say to say no, and I don't think there's one person up there that's going to put the children at risk. That's number one. Number two, we have the opt-out clause. I know everybody seems to be glossing over that, but within 30 days we can say bye-bye to Sandy. No offense, Sandy, but we have that out. You know, if 6 months goes down the road and we don't want to, you know, nothing's happened, she hasn't gotten any offers. You know, folks, we're not looking to get money. We're not looking to lease it. It's been vacant for 8 years. And we're not interested in getting the money. We're not money hungry up here. We just want to, it's just a potential option, that's all. We can certainly entertain any other options if we haven't thought of them already, simultaneously. That's where I'm coming from. But, you know, I just want you to know that the children's safety is paramount. As I mentioned to Lisa on the phone Friday, you know, it's paramount to us as a council, as parents, as mothers and fathers, and the town in which we represent. So we're not going to let anything happen. Now, I do have some questions about the particular listing agreement. Maybe Sandy can address this too. I know in the listing agreement, one of my concerns, that kind of dovetails off of some of the safety concerns, is you mentioned about the lockbox. I'm in mortgage lending. It mentions a lockbox in the agreement.
You want me to come?
Yeah, please, Sandy. Now, I know what a lockbox is because I'm in mortgage lending, so.
Well, that's just on the contract, we don't have to check that off.
Okay.
And I do want to say, we can market it without an address. We can do all sorts of marketing, have a confidentiality agreement with someone before we tell them the location of the property.
Excuse me. And I think because of the concerns, it should be by appointment only.
Correct.
So just to make that right.
So thanks, Sandy. But again, you know, just to folks that may not know what a lockbox is, it's a combination code that's on the door. Obviously, you can get in there without any notification. If Sandy's busy, hey, use a lockbox.
No.
But that's not going to happen.
No.
So anyway, I want to turn over to Bill. You know, we've had numerous discussions about this, and like I said, this is not the first time it's appeared on the agenda. I think we've exhausted a lot of taxpayer funds in coming up with possible solutions. And I want Bill to maybe kind of go through the timeline of what we spent. Bill, go ahead, please.
Well, this will just kind of bring us up to speed to what happened as to how we got here. Basically, we decided, what are we going to do with this 1904 school? It's been abandoned for so many years. So the town council decided that they would hire a professional engineer and architecture outfit to conduct a feasibility study to determine what the best use for that building was. And that was, the money was allocated. It was over $4,000 that the town spent. And the results came in from that study. And to turn that building over for residential use was at least $2.5 million. To turn that building into business use was at least $2.5 million. And to turn it into an educational use for, say, a charter school, considering the ride restrictions, Rhode Island Department of Education, it would cost at least $3.5 million, an additional $1 million to bring that up to speed. And that study was done by the engineering outfit, Crossman Engineering, in August of last year. That does not include the removal of the hazardous materials in that building. The council then authorized a second study that went out to a separate environmental engineering company, and that was done in February of this year. The second study was basically a hazardous material analysis, and they determined, the reason for the request was to determine whether or not there was any hazardous material in the school. And if there was, what was it, where was it located, what type was it, how much would it cost to eradicate all the hazardous materials, and the cost for raising it. The results of that hazardous material analysis was that it would cost $80,000 in order to remove the hazardous materials. And then from the previous study, it was $50,000 to demolish it. So you're talking between $130,000 and $150,000. I know the council has discussed this at length. public sessions, it's been on the agenda. I've also discussed it in my report, town manager's report several times. And we thought of any other option or alternative that would make that a viable, compatible use for that building, and we could think of none. So that's where we got up until this point.
Thanks, Bill. So, I'll start, I guess, to my right, Tom. Is there any, I'm sure you do.
Well, I don't know where to start. I also grew up in Ashaway. I was born here, born the next street over on Church Street. I too went through the elementary school, music and art in the basement, right up through. Probably the reason and that if we're at the point where we are now is because of my feelings towards that school. I've lived here all my life. I went through that school all the way through. And it was at the point when, before I got back on the town council, that it was getting torn down. The building itself is structurally sound. There's not a lot of, I mean, yeah, we have the lead and the paint and asbestos and stuff like that. I just couldn't see tearing that building down. I've been in the building probably within maybe 2 months ago. And just looking on into architecture and stairs and just talking to the teachers when they were in there, they loved those buildings with the long, tall windows and things like that. I was hoping we could get a charter school in there. I did not want to see that building down. It's part of Hopkinton's history. I have postcards of that building before I had the additions put on. So, somewhat, I convinced the council that I would not vote to have it torn down. That was a definite thing. I was hoping to get a hold of Deborah Gist to try to talk with her concerning a charter school going in there. But as we know, she's going to Arizona, and I've been waiting for the new head of education for the state, to hopefully set up an appointment with them. So this was the next option, is to try to sell it or lease it. I'm a parent. My daughter's still in charter school. I would never put a child in harm's way. I mean, I run the sugar house. I have the kids coming over from the elementary school every year, from the kindergartens to the 4th graders. I've even gone out as far as plowing the sidewalk from the school to my sugar house so the kids didn't have to be anywhere near the road. So safety of the kids is very important. Listening to you, I understand where you're all coming from. It almost wants me to say, go burn the thing down. I'm right there with what you're saying, so it's tough because I'm torn between the history of the building, my devotion to that, your school, your alma mater, graduating from there, and when we still have 6th grade. So, I mean, we do have the option of being able to say, no, we're done. And I've exhausted any possibilities I can think of through being on the council prior to 6 years. When we started, when they actually closed the building, to try to find things that were viable for that position. And it always goes back to the best viable thing for that is another school. Chariho gave it up. Chariho is not going to take it back. If we put in $10 million to put that building back in pristine condition, Chariho is not going to take that school back. Cut and dry. That's definitely not going to happen. So to use it for an expansion on our Ashway Elementary, I would love to see that. I'm sure some of the teachers that taught in that building would love to see that, but that's just not an option. There are other things, I like the idea of the appointment only, no lockbox. I'm just not sure. There are things that we can do on the sale, if we sell to one person, to another person, as somebody had mentioned, is put in deed restrictions, if we went that route. So I'm just giving you how we got to where we are now. I'm just very passionate about that building, and to see it torn down would definitely be a tough spot in town Hopkinton. Everybody knows the Ashaway Fire Department. When I grew up in Ashaway, 6 o'clock, the church right across the street from my house would ring. 7 o'clock, the fire alarm would go off. We gave the Ashaway Fire Department $2.6 million to redo that fire station. I begged them to keep that horn, but I think it was somewhere around $60,000 for that horn. It went away. So you need to keep, I'm a history guy, and now that horn's gone, the Ashaway School's going to be gone, and we've even had people moving into town who want the church bell stopped at 6 o'clock because it was bothering one of their dinner parties. So sometimes you laugh, I'm serious.
I've heard the same thing, actually. It's funny that you say that. Yeah. Church bells ring in the Christmas time.
So it's history of our town, where we came from. So I'm really up in the air, but I just want to let everybody know how we got to where we are.
Thanks, Tom. Sylvia?
I honestly can't, selling, I see a lot of problems with selling it. Hopefully, maybe we can take that out of the mix. I prefer a lease arrangement because someday whoever's there will finish and it reverts back to the town. I like the idea of us having control continuing forever on who's in that building. And what I want to see in the building, period, is a charter school, unless Cheraho will come back. I want to see it for school, whatever we can call it, any kind of school you want, but I'd like to see it as a school, as it was used before. And the only way that may happen is through, apparently, working through a realtor. I see that Ms. Bliven offered to market it without an address. Great. You can come up with more ideas like that. That's a good one. By appointment only, of course, but it should be by appointment only after school hours. So you don't want to be coming and going, because cars can't just go driving in there during school hours. And it may be that the chief may have some other suggestions as they relate to safety, and I would rely on his judgment to offer to us and to you. The idea of even doing this, a few years back when we were going to, thinking about demolishing it, and we finally got to the point where we were going to, it looked like this year may actually do it. I asked that we simultaneously do this, because if it fell through, if anything changed, it wouldn't hurt to get a realtor, to find somebody who could market this building at the same time we were looking at demolishing it, because if we came up with another option, we wouldn't have to tear it down. So I think this is the right thing to do, but I think if there are controls in there, you have to have controls to make it safe. But I prefer the leasing, and I prefer that it be a school of some sort, period. And I want to offer that a few years ago, and I did talk to him last year. I don't know if the offer is still there. If we move forward with this and we actually find somebody to come in and do some sort of school. There was an individual in town who was he was in the first class that attended in kindergarten, the 1904 building, and he offered to donate $1 million because he didn't want to see it demolished. So if we could still borrow that money, well, not borrow it, if it was still available and we were able to find a school, hopefully it becomes a little more affordable. Just $3.5 million is too much money. But we have a realtor who's willing to move forward with it, and I say we move forward with it. And I would ask you, either of you to respond. How would you feel about just leasing and taking sale right out of the picture?
I think that is positive for the community. And I also,
Yeah, come up to the microphone.
I also know someone that is very interested, and it might be the same person, his initials are RG, that wants to donate. And I'm very good friends with him. We're all very good friends with him.
Oh, good. Okay.
So I was going to talk to him as well. I'd love to see someone put some money into it and do something spectacular.
Okay, so we could take sale out of this agreement and just call it a lease.
And then you always have the option.
Okay. Yep.
Barbara?
I have always not wanted to sell or lease under any circumstance. I think it's Hopkinton's land, it's municipal land, it should stay municipal. It is our property for us to either expand the school, bring the fifth graders back. I think there's any number of uses we may find for it in the future. I think leasing or selling it is short-sighted. I understand people's concern about it as a historic building. Westerly had the same problem with their big high school, which has a wonderful monument in the park for in memory of this great high school and all of the memories that people have had. I see no reason why, if it is demolished, it can't be a gazebo, a cupola, a monument on property in a bunch of grass, and let the children play in the grass, the playground, and have a monument to the building and all of the memories in the town of Hopkinton. I do not understand at all why you sell or lease in the least. However, I have questions on the contract as well, and I'd like to ask some of those. I think I saw that one. On the second page of the contract, the dual facilitation, and I just have a question on this because I don't know the answer. Broker and its affiliated licensees will not disclose sellers or the buyer's confidential information except where disclosure is required by law, state law. So does that mean that if someone comes as XYZ Corporation and they don't want to give out their names, that we would not know who was buying the building except as a corporation? Or is that something that is not considered confidential, but we would know who was buying it, not just...
Well, that would be part of the agreement. We would want to know who it is. We'd want them to sign a confidentiality before we give them the address. And a dual facilitator means that if one of us brings in a buyer, we represent the town. We're only facilitating a deal between you.
Right, but we would always know who was buying the building.
Correct.
They couldn't hide under a mask
No.
of a corporation or something. Okay, that's very good. Deposits. On the first page, and I believe it's been answered for me, but I'm asking again. If the property is withdrawn from the market, and this is in your contract, by a voluntary act of seller, that's us, and if we voluntarily say 30 days, we don't want anything, without the consent of broker, and I would assume you'd consent, let's say you weren't there and you didn't consent, compensation per section 5A is based on the discretion of the broker, not the seller, either on list price or actual expenses relating to the subject property. So I am assuming that if the broker does not give consent, even though it says in this contract that you would give consent, that we would be liable for either a percentage of the list price or the actual expenses relating to the subject property.
Well,
Since any contract can be broken, no one should ever think that contracts can't be broken.
Right, and on number 5C, I put not applicable because we would not take any deposit. There would be nothing that, and we will release any contract. We're not going to hold anyone hostage.
I was more concerned on the amount of money you may put into the selling.
No, that's part of doing business.
Yeah. Okay.
That's what we do that. Some days you have it comes back trifold and some days you write it off, so.
Okay, that's just fine. And there's also on page, well, it's like the last page. They said under 16C, seller's responsibility, there's a smoke carbon monoxide detector mandated by the state seller to deliver to the closing officer a smoke detector and carbon monoxide detector certificate. Now, is that only for residential and not for commercial, or would we be
That is
liable for
correct.
that?
That is for residential only.
Okay, but this is in a residential neighborhood, it is zoned
Yeah, but it's a
residential.
commercial, you know, it's an industrial commercial building.
Right, but it's not, it's still in a residential neighborhood, and it could be sold for lots, for all I know. You could bring that forward.
What's your question, Bob?
If it's residential, the smoke carbon monoxide
Well,
detectors.
there's a law when you sell a home, that it has to have a carbon monoxide, okay, from the fire department. If we don't have that, it's not, they won't go
Can't
through the
transfer
sale.
title.
Right, but we would have to, if we wanted to sell a building, we would have to get that certificate and get those detectors.
You would not.
No.
No, because it's considered commercial even if it's in a residential
Yeah,
neighborhood.
I mean, you can talk to your solicitor and make sure that's
Right.
acceptable to you.
Okay, I have the same problem with lockbox authorization, which vandals could use in a
We're not
heartbeat.
doing that.
Right, exactly. I think that's kind of ludicrous. At present, you have to realize this building is not going to be torn down. At present, we are putting $25,000 into the fire detectors, and so the building is going to sit. At this point, nothing's being torn down, even though our engineer suggested that as probably the best use is to have it demolished. But the citizens have to realize that at this point, the building exists, there's no problem with it, and it has a fire suppression, or fire system in it. So it's going to sit for a year or two or three, or however long it's going to sit. I don't think it needs to be, again, sold or leased. Also, the idea of appointment only, the problem with appointment only and after school hours is that a person wanting to look at the building isn't going to wait necessarily for you. They may drive up, walk around the building without you knowing about it. I mean, you could be perfectly innocent.
They won't have the address to start with.
Yeah, but they'll probably be able to find that. If someone knows that it's for sale, or if one person you show talks to someone else. At some point, someone's going to be walking around the building that no one has any idea. It won't be your fault. You know, I'm trying to say you're completely innocent, but indeed people are going to wander around that building. And you're going to have the same problem with the janitors or custodians or somebody trying to come out and say, who is this person? So just because it's appointment only does not mean that will occur. Certainly they probably can't get into the building, but they certainly can wander around the outside of the building because people can. It's an open campus, it's not a closed campus. So I am concerned about this. Also, the statewide multiple listing service contract and this other contract, exclusive right to sale, there are two things that don't match. You do say, very nicely, I have to agree, display property address on the internet is a yes on the contract so far. I mean, obviously you can change that. But on the first contract, allow automated value estimates of your property to be posted on a website. The statewide says yes, the other contract says no. And also allow comments or reviews of your property to be posted on websites. The statewide multiple listing says yes, your contract says no. Obviously that needs to be dovetailed a little better because I'm sure the no's are correct.
Correct.
And not the yeses. Overall, we have dealt with this building for 7 or 8 years. The town has put money into seeing what we could do. I know people love it as a historic building. It still needs to either have a purpose or become a museum. But even then, people could only go to it after school hours. It's ludicrous. I don't want you to spend money on something we would not agree with or not agree to. I think it's unfair to you. I don't know a contract that can't be broken. I don't know a council that can't be swayed. I don't know a council that won't have different people on it who either don't care or they care too much. I don't know who's going to buy it. I don't know who's going to buy it after who buys it. I think that's a very good point. I don't think you know if someone wants to buy it for a school and then they can't find a school, that they don't lease it to people you don't approve of, but it's temporary, so it would fit under their contract. They're not breaching their contract. I have lots of concerns and things that, you know, is not really controllable. And I realize that people are saying that it's an opt-out, we can get out of it any time. I'm sure that's true, but why are we in it in the first place? You know, this school is important. I don't want it to burn down unless I get the cupola back. I want that cupola. You know, I want it to be respected and revered, but honored, and not necessarily as being torn down without a monument. Certainly not used for retail, commercial, industrial space. It doesn't deserve it. It's had thousands of children in it, and they have thousands of memories. And I would like it to stay until we know what we have to do, how much money we have, that we can demolish it, but create in its place a grassland, a playground, a memorial for the town. And I really appreciate the work, but I really would like the building to be honored and respected and not created in a manner that would be detrimental and frightening and upsetting to the people of this town. And both people who live on the street as well as parents with all of their children. And especially since children are there all the time. You know, they're there after school hours. And I think that's kind of scary all by itself, but I'm glad the school is open.
I just want to say, I respect all of that. I've sold homes on the hillside. I know the swings over there. You never know where this is going to go. This could bring us a philanthropist that wants to do something exciting there. We don't know where it's going to go. I might talk to that gentleman tonight, and he might say, Sandy, I don't want anything to happen to it. I'm going to take care of it. You don't know. It could be a doorway that we don't even know.
But you don't want it just to have nothing happen to it.
It could be a big garden, a park, or like you said. Yeah.
To have nothing happen to it as anything else.
If we don't try, we won't know.
I would like you not to try.
Well, that's your opinion, thank you.
Okay.
David, you're up.
Well, I'm going to make my lot shorter than previous comments. I live in a historic house right now in Hopkinton. I've lived in 2 historic houses in Hopkinton in the last 32 years. So I've been around, and I know, and I like historic. I think that's a real important part of this town, is the historic nature of this town. I've also read the demolition report, and the hazardous material report, and the use feasibility study. And this town is not ready to spend $3.5 million to turn that into a charter school or any kind of other kind of school. Right now, that school, that building, is a hazard. It's a white elephant that sits there. It's just waiting for something bad to happen. Anybody that lives around there should be very concerned about that building.
Yes, we are.
Thank God nothing's happened so far. I mean, it doesn't even have graffiti on it. I shouldn't say that in public, but it doesn't even have that yet. But boy, it just takes one problem. And the chief knows what I'm talking about. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. And that whole neighborhood's in trouble. That school's in trouble. I'm talking about the new school's in trouble. So I don't like that school sitting there. I don't want that school sitting there empty. At the same time, I can't believe anybody is going to pay a lot of money, I'm talking about millions of dollars, to fix that school up, to fix that building up into something else. I walked through the building. I like the building. I think it's wonderful inside. I also walked through the White Rock School back in 82, when I worked for the Wesley Sun, when they were talking about demolishing that building, and the entire village of White Rock was all upset about losing their school. That had been abandoned for quite a few years. They brought up pictures of when it was active, and that school went down because that school was built maybe a little earlier than this one down here, but not that much earlier. It was the same situation. The school, the building itself, had outlived its purpose, and they couldn't find anything else to do with it. And that had a lot more land than this one's got over here. here. You're absolutely right, that building is too close to the current school. To have anybody in there that's gonna be a threat in any manner to the school building, all the children in that school. So, as far as I'm concerned, I can't imagine anything happening to that building. I think that the building eventually should be torn down, and that's just my opinion.
Okay. This option came about, I guess as everyone stated earlier, as a potential option, just to explore the option. I'm glad, this Sylvia was the architect of this sale/lease deal, and she's certainly relented on the sale piece, and I think she's done that gracefully because of the concerns of the parents. So I think it's a good compromise just to look at it as a lease, and then if it turns into something that we all want, we can look at it at that time. But ultimately, I think that's a good compromise. Secondly, the ultimate say with who we lease it to is with the council. I don't see any reason why, and I understand the concerns. If we put in the safety concerns, like the confidential agreement, the no address, appointment by appointment only, after school hours, I can't see that we can't explore this option just for a little bit. And within 60 days, if we don't like it, they don't get any offers, and we want to pull it, we can always pull it before the next council. We've got a year and a half left in our terms. We have certainly a lot of control with it. I just think it is a potential option, and I don't see why we can't explore it. The reason that I initially wanted to raise the building, when I got in the cost from the hazard material abatement and the demo, it was $130,000. Quite honestly, the way budgets are with the school budget, I thought that the $130,000, quite honestly, would be spent better spent elsewhere in lowering the taxes and providing some of the things that we needed in town. So that's why I voted to not raise it after I saw that bill. So that's where I came from on that. So anyway, so I need
Move that
a
we
motion.
give the exclusive right to lease the former Ashway Elementary School, 1904 school, to Caldwell Banker Cahoon Realty Group, with the provisions enumerated in the listing agreement, provided it is only shown by appointment only after school hours. The Hopkinton Police Department will be notified ahead of time of the appointment. Marketing will be done without giving out the school address. No lockbox will be used. Confidentiality agreement will be in place. Anything else? Did I miss anything? Okay.
Motion made, second?
Second.
Okay, any further discussion, folks? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Not in favor?
Nay.
Aye.
Okay,
Just one more final statement.
sure.
Just because I voted, it's just an option as to where we look at it. I mean, if we're not going to do anything with it, then it might as well be torn down. Simple as that. I can't see it just sitting there, wasting away.
Okay. Next, under old business, provide a status update on proposed ride-out improvements to Woodville Road and Main Street, Route 3 to Switch Road.
Yeah, I also do our best.
Yeah, I will. You are recording?
I brought this up, the Woodville Road reconstruction project. Mr. McGarry sent it to the town council members, and I thought it was important for the public to know that this is happening. We have waited years for this to be on the DOT's agenda. That's the entire Woodville Road from Route 3 to Switch Road. With all the road reconstruction we're doing now, and the major roads we're reconstructing, this would be a wonderful addition to our infrastructure. And so I asked Mr. McGarry if he would explain to the public how the DOT is planning on doing the Woodville Road reconstruction, which I believe is on their agenda now for 2016. Could you explain how they're planning on accomplishing this?
town received correspondence on May 1st and some contract documents from the Department of Transportation regarding the plan specifications and engineering improvements to Woodville Road, which are going to run from Main Street, Route 3, all the way to Switch Road, about 4.3 miles. It's a huge project. The scope of the work includes the recycling of the existing pavement, overlaying, replacing existing draining culverts,
Second.
Okay, motion made seconded. Any further discussion, folks? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Can I just say something?
Yes.
There's no guarantee this is going to do it either. The business lobbying up at the State House is way more powerful than you are, and that's really what we're dealing with. So God only knows what we'll do with this.
Yeah, I mean, we put the parameters as it's suggested, and we'll have to see how it goes. Hopefully it'll come out of committee. If it doesn't, then we'll try and go back to the drawing board. Okay. Next, under old business, Council Husband had suggested a board and commission vacancy update. David, the floor is yours, I guess.
Thank you, sir. I want to thank the town clerk for drawing up this list. We have quite a few openings on various commissions, boards, and I guess that's what boards and commissions. And so I'd like to say this up, bring this up to the public. None of these positions are paying positions, I can tell you. But they're important positions on almost every one of these groups, these boards and commissions and committees. And so if anybody's interested in any of these openings, simply send us a letter to the town council, say, telling us of your interest, and we'll give you a quick interview, and give you a shot at joining one of these groups. So the Affordable Housing Partnership needs 1 member. Animal Control Commission needs 2 members. The Charter Commission, a minimum of 2 more members are needed, and then a maximum of 9 members per charter, it says here. The Conservation Commission, of which I'm a liaison to, needs a member, and that's a good group. Historic District Commission, which is now reviewing the area right here in Hopkinton City, needs a member and 2 alternate members. Planning Board, very important group, needs a member, and the Zoning Board of Review, also a very important group, needs an alternate member. So if you're interested in any of these things, any of these positions, they don't pay. Some meet once a month, some meet once every 2 weeks. But it's nice to take part in your community. It really, really is. And then you say, geez, I like this town and I'm doing something for it. If I join one of these groups here that need a member, you're really helping out the group and helping out the town, and you're going to make yourself feel pretty good.
Okay, David, thanks.
I just want to say, I think the planning board member means an alternate, not a member. Al Howard, Amy Frank, there's Donna, and...
Well, if you move someone up, right.
Well, yeah, they have, but I think they still need another alternate member.
Yeah, the gal that left, was she, did she become full?
Yeah, she was a full member.
So they haven't nominated anybody who
Right.
made a recommendation, she had to do so.
Right, there's Amy and Frank, and Amy was the next one in line, and then Frank, and I believe Hazel's still on there.
Not this Frank.
No, not that Frank.
Okay, thank you. Any guys have any questions on that? New business. I thought Mr. McGreen was going to fall asleep on me. I'm glad he has not. Next on the new business, discuss, consider, and act upon a request from WFD Associates LP and Concern Real Estate Group, the developer, for the town to accept ownership of Beechwood Hollow Road and Hopkins Hollow Road for incorporation into the town roadway system as shown on plans entitled Record Plan Phase 1 Beechwoods Assessors Plat 5, Lot 73, Hopkinton, Rhode Island, Sheet 17 of 18, revised June 10th, 04, and Record Plan Phase 2 Beechwoods Assessors Plat 5, Lot 73, Hopkinton, Rhode Island, Sheet 18 of 18, revised 6/10 of 04, prepared by Decree Engineering for the developer, which plans are recorded in the land evidence records of the town of Hopkinton, Rhode Island on July 15, 2004, in Plat Book 12, page 11, and more particularly described by meets and bounds in the roadway deed to the town of Hopkinton.
Can I go so moved so we can get a motion on the floor and then discuss? So we don't have to speak it all again? So moved.
Second. Okay, motion made and seconded. Okay, discussion, folks. Any questions for the final approval of Beechwood to the town?
This is how it's done, right?
Yeah, I'd just like to hear from you.
Yeah. This is the town, our illustrious DPW
I'm very
chief.
glad this is happening.
Yeah.
What do you want to know?
I just I know that you're happy with this.
Yes, I am. I thought it came out pretty good.
I did read his letter, thank you.
Yeah.
Your blessing is on it? Okay.
Thanks, Ken. Any questions for Mr. Taft?
Long walk for a few words.
Great job.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other discussion by the council? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay. Next, discuss, consider, and act upon a request from WFD Associates LP and Concerned Real Estate Group, the developer, to authorize the town clerk to release the performance bond posted for phase 1 of the Beechwood subdivision in the amount of $507,540 and to confirm posting of a maintenance bond in the amount of $69,297 as recommended by the planning board on May 18, 2015.
So moved.
Please make sure in your motion that you make your approval and acceptance of the roadway conditional upon the posting of that maintenance bond.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so we move that the Hopkinton Town Council authorize the town clerk to release the performance bond posted for phase 1 of the Beechwood subdivision in the amount of $507,540 and to confirm the posting of maintenance bond in the amount of $69,297 as a condition to the town's acceptance of the road as recommended by the planning board on May 18, 2015.
Motion made second.
A second.
Okay. Any further discussion?
Was this prior to, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
In other words, there's no acceptance of the road until that maintenance bond is posted.
Right.
The beach check?
Understood, Mr. President.
Okay. All right, motion made second. Lisa.
Who is going to be in receipt of that bond? Who is that going to be filed? There's office?
Where are they usually filed? We have bonds all the time, so.
Right. I imagine it would go with the planner. And then it gets transferred to me.
I don't know, we have bonds all the time, so it's got to be right, it's got to be a procedure.
Okay.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Jack, do you have any further questions?
I don't.
Okay. Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Good to see you. I put on this agenda item, expression of appreciation for retiring Hope Valley, Wyoming Fire Chief Fred Stanley for his 50 years of dedicated service. Yeah.
Well, he's retiring officially, but he's not retiring. He'll be a volunteer forever.
God bless Phil Stanley.
So I had asked Chief Stanley if he was able to come by. He's still mending he had a back operation because he fell through the floor. Still fighting fire at 81 or 2.
And he will forever.
Yeah. But I told him how thankful I was for all the years of dedication to the town. Next, under new business, this item came about when we were chatting, I guess, about various boards and commissions.
Yes.
It's discuss, consider, and vote on a process for term renewal of board and commission members. I'll hand it over to Mr. Buck.
Years ago, back maybe 6, 8 years ago, we never had the renewal people come back in. It just, to me, it just seems a waste of time. We go in there, we chit chat with them, how you been, how's your kids, because we already know who they are. We already know what they do. And have them come out for 5 minutes in the winter time, in the snow or whatever. I just think is not conducive to getting somebody to sign up. So, I mean, the renewals, I think, just should, if they want to have it renewed, unless there's a question by one of the councils to do it, just renew it. If it's a new person, then yeah, I'd like to meet them and stuff like that. But I just thought, it's less meetings for us because we go to so many meetings now.
Do we have a motion on this?
I think also that if a counselor doesn't know who wants to move, then they could ask for them to appear as well.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I think that makes good sense.
Motion.
Yes, please.
How would you like them to appear? Years ago, what was done is we put in our consent agenda. That to reappoint such and such a person to whatever board. Or I could put it on under just a board of commission heading and.
Yeah, I like the board.
I'm sure.
And And I don't know if there needs to be any change on the form, but the issue of, I think it's important to have a process written down somewhere, and maybe it belongs on that form, but specifically stating that if there's a council, if you, next election, you have only one new person, that one new person may say, I don't know them, I need to interview, and that's okay, we all say that's okay.
But if one person has a question, one counselor has a question or wants to meet that person, then we'll.
Yeah, I agree.
We only need one person to want to do
I
that.
mean, Lisa knows the process, and maybe
So-
it's as simple as that.
Going forward then, anyone who's a renewal, who's expressed interest, I will provide them with their letter, place it on an agenda on the boards and commissions to reappoint this individual to whatever, or a commission that they're already a member of. If anybody at that point when it's on that agenda. wants
Right,
to
that's
meet,
when they could say.
well, you could say,
Right.
well, could we table this until such time?
Good
as we
idea.
schedule an interview?
Yeah, that's simple. Yeah,
Yeah,
that
or
works.
when you- when
Or-
No, that's perfect.
Or when you get that person up for renewal, and I guess they have to fill out that form.
A letter goes out to them.
Letter goes out, yeah.
They select, yes, I want to renew, stay, or no, I would like to resign. Would you like to see that letter before we put it, like in?
How about just having it, can you add a section to it, do you want an interview or not? You know, because they may just say, yeah, let me check that off, I don't need to come back in.
I think most
No.
would rather
You want to
come
ask
back.
Well, I would think it's up to
individual
the
if they want to-
councils to do that, not the,
Yeah.
Okay.
where they
I would
appoint.
think it would be, as you as the appointing authority, it would be more important for you. But of course, I'm sure you would be open to them if they wanted to be interviewed another time.
Like
I
Tom
would
said,
think-
like I said, don't mind me, I'm like.
There are some people who have indicated that it is more of a cumbersome process to come back in when they already know you and you must be having to get considered.
Yeah, so, however we want to do it, like I said, doesn't matter to me. So, you know, I'll.
I think Lisa had a good suggestion. She puts it on the agenda, and if somebody at that point would say, wait a minute, I don't even know who that person
Right, and
is.
I would like, yeah, then you can hold on to the table.
Do that.
Okay,
Sounds fine.
okay, thank you.
All right, yes, I also wanted to mention quickly, I forgot to put this on the agenda, among other things, but the town's budget vote is next, Lisa, is it next Tuesday?
Tuesday,
The 9th?
here at the town
An
hall,
all-day,
7 a.m.
all-day
to
vote referendum for the town budget, right?
7 a.m. 9 to 9 p.m.
Okay. It's a good,
The 9th.
June 9th, Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Yeah, it's a good budget, we got a good reduction from the school committee, we did a lot of expenditures with the Department of Public Works, and the road bond is debt services and or something. Anyway, not to elaborate too much on that, because I'm gonna get tapped on the shoulder with that. So anyway, it's a good budget, please go out and vote, thank you. It's a 26-cent reduction in the tax rate too. I also want to make sure that someone mentions.
Of course.
So,
Move that we adjourn.
no, hold on. Last public forum, anyone out there wishing to be heard?
Good evening again. We've got two topics that we'd like to cover. The first is, while we do recognize that you have voted to lease only the building, while we were sitting here listening to everybody talk about the items, the potential use that had been discussed, I did have the thought that Councilwoman Capalvo's idea of somehow memorializing the building. There are plenty of companies nowadays that will reclaim the architectural details of buildings that have reached their usable end of life. That may be an option to explore. We can take the cupola, we can make a nice gazebo, we can put the bell undercover, keep the stone sign, and make a green space for the students and alleviate the issues that we have. Just want to make like an analogy to our flag. That when it has used its end of life, it gets a ceremonial burning, and that is not disrespectful. So maybe we can find a way to memorialize the building or reclaim the space in such a way that it suits everyone's needs. The other item we wanted to speak about was saying that I'm sorry.
One of the other areas of concern I have in regards to leasing, will there be a stipulation to where the school and the leased property is kept separate? The major concern I have is that it is one property. It's all one property. It's one entrance during the day. It's one exit during the day. Because the school gates are closed for recess, the school gates are closed during the day. So if that's an opportunity for the school to, the old school, 1904, to be leased, what will the entrance and exit be? Because I don't want it to be the area that my child is playing. I don't want it to be the area where it has to be closed off or opened, because I drop my daughter off in one way, go around back to school, come out the other way while the buses are in there. So it would be nice if that's also an option that is considered, that it's separate.
We understand that,
Oh.
for sure.
The other concern I have too is you can't see children as you are driving. So if you are driving through and there are cars needing that special spot for the principal and the secretary and all those other areas, it is very easy, despite being very slow, to not see somebody walking in that area. So that needs to also be another consideration. And I should remember this because I don't remember if I have or have not read it, but is it still a working septic system? Is it still working well? Are all those, I don't remember.
I'm not sure.
There are interconnections with the other schools.
Again, this is public forum, so I don't want to get into dialogue here back and forth, but
Just
any
questions.
concerns,
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it's a working
Right.
subject or not.
So that's another area.
It's up to the buyer. or the
We're aware of
lessor.
certain connections.
But it interferes with our waters as well. It interferes with the water across the street. It interferes with the walkway behind the school. There is that cute little area that you go up and walk around to the field. So there are a lot of other implications as well to leasing that area. That was what but the playground. Yes, thank you for making those accommodations. I did go there this weekend. We go there often. Again, we live on Hillside. We go between the school and we go down to Colonel's Field. My concern is that not everything has been fixed. There still are swings that are missing. There still are areas that are missing. The balance beam is not in full repair. It's missing bolts. My daughter almost fell this weekend because there is a piece of wood that's off. It was wonderful to have the plastic put on the metal. That's great. That's a good idea. But they missed the slide. They did. They really did. Because that was the first thing they noticed. It's gone. It's not important to you.
Of course it's important to us.
No.
I
It isn't. But you know what I mean. It's a missing piece.
That's why we're here, because we love this town. Every part of it.
And we do too. We do too. But maybe a plastic slide? You said that there's money in the budget.
We'll figure it out.
Okay.
We hear you. Yeah. Thank you.
I just wanted to, I know the director of the rec department does her best, and the DPW does their best to maintain it. But there needs to be a distinction made between meeting the satisfaction of an insurance company and meeting the needs of the public. That those two goals may not necessarily be the same. And while the director has told you that she's there all the time, and I don't doubt that she is, it's not. When we're playing there, we don't see representatives. We wouldn't know necessarily to go into the building to report that someone had gotten hurt or to find somebody to talk about the issues that we find.
Where to use the bathroom.
And you can give a kid a $10,000 playground, or you can give them a pile of sticks, and they'll play happily on both. So it's very difficult to judge the children's use of the playground against the need to expedite the replacement. on this. There is a plan in the works, and there is money allocated to be budgeted in the future, and that's excellent. And I think we're just going to reiterate that if there's anything you can do to speed up the process, get the public involved, get private fundraising done, things that, if money's the only issue, I guarantee there are donors who could help alleviate that. If it's volunteering to get it erected, there is the same sort of council group that could be formed similar to when it was first built with the Charitable Votech or residents. There's people, there's money. So if we get that moving, if we get that ball rolling, we can get it done sooner rather than later, and that's really all we're asking.
We'll put you on that committee if you'll volunteer. You can chair it. How about that?
I am not going on record, but talk to me later.
Thank you. Anyone else? Last public comment.
I'd just really like to say that although I may not necessarily agree with all of the council members, I do really appreciate all of the representing, and I do believe the town is fairly well represented by all of you, and I would like to say thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. I'm going to keep this short. First, I want to thank all of you for allowing us to have a second opportunity to voice our concerns, our opinions with all of you. First of all, I want to commend a couple of you for your very insightful comments regarding the old school building, in that, yes, it is a white elephant. Yes, it is going to cost way too much to renovate it, to make it a usable complex. Yes, I think it would be an excellent idea to demolish the building and use that as a green space so that the children of Ashway Elementary and the children of the Ashway community can use that as a play area. Yes, I'm glad that the council is finally moving forward in making the decision as far as viable steps to follow in what to do with this building. It troubles me that we want to hold on to buildings simply for nostalgic reasons. Sometimes we just have to let things go and move forward. And in addition to that, it also troubles me the possibility of bringing in a charter school, which would then cause extreme conflicts between the Chariho Public School District. As a teacher of the public school system of Westerly and a resident of Ashway, that troubles me deeply. But again, I want to thank you very much for moving forward with this very complex situation that we're now facing, and I remain hopeful that we will not get any responses to this lease so that the building can be demolished and we will be able to have a green space for all the children of Ashway. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So you guys have definitely heard from a good cross-section of the town tonight. Right? So you heard from law enforcement, you heard from neighbors of the building that don't have children in school, parents that have an investment with their children in the school. I don't think we could have presented you a better cross-section of opinion tonight. And two of you, Barbara and Dave, listened and responded. Barbara, I know you were always kind of on this page. Dave, certainly appreciate you listening to our input. Councilman Buck, I thought we almost had you. we all thought that you were really weighing out your feelings over the public. But Mrs. Thompson, I know that this is your baby. I know that you have been...
I never went to the school. I went to Hope Valley, so...
Okay, well, for whatever reason that you're behind this as strongly as you are, I think the compromises you made took the most amount of work tonight, because you, as Frank said, you were the one that put this forward. This was your idea. You brought in the realtor, and you made significant compromises tonight to try to appease us. So thank you for that. I'm going to ask you to make one more. If you would consider 2 more points now that you've voted to approve the lease. If you would please consider not beginning until June 23rd. If you let our children finish the school year and then not allow any showings, because as we've been told, the children play there after school, they're there all the time. So if you could please not allow the first showing until June 23rd, which is after the last day of the school. I think that would further help us alleviate some of the angst that we're going to be feeling. And if that, in that 30-day provision, if you could please, I'm officially requesting you put it back on the agenda in 30 days, because it'll be midsummer, and we can look at this again before our children return to school. And we can rally one more time now that we're very aware and come back to you and we'll see what has happened. But if this is something that can begin and end within the summer, a lot of the concern and the angst and the tears and the stress that is being caused by this can maybe stay contained within just this season and then be resolved by September. So please, please consider those 2 items.
Lisa, excuse me,
Yeah.
not a showing from June 23rd on, but the exclusive right to list beginning.
Could you?
No, you can just rephrase that if you want. It's because...
Lisa, did you hear what she said?
It's because, hi.
We understand,
We
can hear you both.
It's the exposure, the
Can you come up to the podium?
She was trying to. Hello, Julie Bruno, Ashima. I was saying the exclusive right to lease to begin on June 23rd, so as not to expose any. You say it's confidential. I'm in real estate. I'm a real estate attorney. The word gets out very quickly on what is exposed. So confidentiality. I don't think that withholding the address is going to do anything, but I don't think you're going to get a lot of activity anyway. My suggestion was to have it not begin until June 23rd when the kids are out of school.
Take that under advisement.
So my second item was on the playground, because I remember I was here and I spoke on that last time. There has been a significant injury on that playground, and I will ask Mary whether or not there's an incident report. My daughter was on the moving balance beam, the one that I surprised past inspection. It's a balance beam that's suspended by 2 ropes, and it actually moves while you're trying to balance on it. And my beautiful, sweet, clumsy daughter decided to try to run across it, flipped and split her head open, requiring stitches, transport to the hospital. We have excellent health insurance, and so that was the end of it. And I love this town, so I would never go to the trust. But so there have definitely been significant injuries on that.
Would you prefer it be removed? Because kids do things, like, for instance, you go down the slide, you can stand going down the slide, and you can get hurt. And whose fault is that?
Let's not get into that.
So,
yeah, so I wondered.
Okay.
Lisa, we'll look at it.
Okay.
If
So
we got stitches because they're on the balance beam, we'll figure it out.
So, not to respond to what you're saying, but let's say the thought pops in my head that I should remove the slide. How would I respond to that? The balance beam it's like having a concrete versus a mulching situation. Things evolve. A moving balance beam, it really shouldn't have passed inspection, as opposed to using a chair and tipping over on a chair. She was using the equipment as it was intended to be used, and the equipment caused her injury, as opposed to misusing equipment. But, so that's that. But 2 items, the 23rd, and please, in 30 days, put this back on the agenda. Let us come back before September begins. Thank you.
Thanks. Anyone else? I want to make sure that we adjourn in memory of our someone can make that.
Move that we adjourn in memory of a dedicated, well-respected community member, Ron Kennedy.
I just want to say I'll second it, but he has always been so involved with town, whether you agree with him or you didn't agree with him. He certainly has been on the council once and about 15 years on the planning. He was a really important, I'm sorry? Zoning board. He's just been a very important member of the town, and we are very sorry for his demise.
Okay.
Can I talk now?
Yeah.
Okay. he spent his whole life in service to the community, not just his community, but the nation. He was in the military, he was in the fire department, he served on the council, he was a zoning board, and I'm sure there were other things, but he was like, and of course his family, I mean, raised some great kids. So anyway, but he spent his entire life in service to others.
I'll miss him. I used to chat with him on his deck in the back. When I saw him out in the yard, so I pop over, but he was a tough bugger. Yeah, so anyway, he was good to talk to, but anyway, I'll miss him dearly, so anyway. A motion to adjourn? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Thank you.